Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome here at Crypto Hash Review, where we educate and disseminate knowledge about Bitcoin, especially as it relates to how Muslims need to interact with this new technology. The second part of our series, talking about the technology behind Bitcoin, primarily the concepts behind Bitcoin. The first one we spoke about the concept of where do you store your Bitcoin, and essentially you store your Bitcoin in an atom. Any atom in the known universe, find that atom, that's where your Bitcoin will be stored. That particular number, it's a big number, but that number is essentially where your Bitcoin is stored. The second part of the equation or part of the system deals with transactions. How do you verify that money was sent from this person to that person or from this number to that number? How do you verify that and secure that information in a manner that can't be manipulated, changed, stopped, prevented, or lied about even? And the similarities we have, or the example we can give you is of two concepts inside Islam. One concept which is called ljma, consensus, and the other one is called tawatur, which is, it's hard to explain in translation, but I'll explain what these two things mean. So ijma basically means when people get together and agree on something to such an extent whereby that agreement becomes fact. So an example of that we have in Islam is that when Muslims all agree that if you pray on the plane, your prayer is valid. Now, why did that question come up? Because planes move around, they're up and down, they're not on the ground. So if you were to pray on the plane, are there any specific considerations we need to have? Is it valid? Is it not valid? Is it like praying on the back of a camel? These are kind of questions that may come up. But no single scholar on the planet Earth has ever disagreed that you can pray on the plane. That is effectively an ijma'. Now, what's significant about ijma' in Islam is that when ijma' does occur, there isn't any need anymore to really look for a proof in the Quran or the Sunnah, because the fact that ijma' occurs in the first place means it is fact. It's a long explanation, but that's one of the examples of ijma', which is a consensus. The other word I mentioned, which is called tawatur, and some may know it as word as mutawatir. So tawatur basically means that when enough people narrate something to the degree whereby it's impossible for them to agree upon a lie, which is pretty much how the Quran was transmitted to us. The Quran was transmitted to us person by person in an unbroken chain to the extent whereby it's impossible that they could have agreed upon a lie. That's tawatur. So these two concepts, how do they apply to Bitcoin? What does that mean to Bitcoin? Well, in Bitcoin, it is a decentralized network, meaning it is a network that is not controlled by anybody. It's controlled by everybody. So there is no organization or people or government, rich, poor, or whatever, that says we dictate who transacts or who does not transact. Rather, it exists and no one can stop the transaction or control the system at all. So what that means, we're going to describe it in more detail, is that when a person sends a transaction to the network, the blockchain network, everyone can see the transaction, but then a miner, for example, will take this transaction, he will put into a block. Long story short, once this block gets accepted into the blockchain, then everybody in the network would check this block, check that the transaction is valid, and then they would add it to their own personal records and then propagate it to other people's records. So it means that if I ask you or someone else or the guy down the road or someone in China or someone in Australia, they will all have copies of the exact same transaction. Independent copies, by the way. They're not referring to me, I'm referring to them. I refer to my own copy. And everyone can do this, by the way. You can go to the bitcoin.org website, download the Bitcoin blockchain, and once you start downloading all the transactions, you can actually have a copy of every transaction that has ever occurred on planet Earth. Now, Bitcoin goes a step further by saying we're going to not only download a copy of the transaction, we're actually going to verify every one of the transactions mathematically. So that's another level of verification. So it's a bit like saying there is an ijma, there is a consensus amongst everyone that this transaction took place. And not only is there an ijma', the consensus that it took place, we also verified mathematically that it took place. We can check it. And this is effectively why Bitcoin is unstoppable. You can't stop something that doesn't exist in any one place. It exists everywhere. If 5 out of the 6 continents on planet Earth was to sink in the ocean, Bitcoin won't be affected. It still exists. If you were to stop all the internet access on planet Earth, again, it still won't affect it because there actually are satellites in space broadcasting, beaming down to planet Earth, the blockchain network. So Bitcoin effectively is unstoppable because just like the Quran is unstoppable because it is mutawatir, because it is agreed upon, because it is so widely spread, you can't stop it anymore. Likewise, Bitcoin network is an unstoppable force. You can't actually stop the network anymore. There's no amount of people you can incarcerate, imprison, kill even to stop them from securing the network. These are the 2 concepts we have about Bitcoin. Number 1, storing your money in a number, any number somewhere in known universe. And the second idea is consensus. Once you've made a transaction, everyone in the network will verify the transaction and give it a thumbs up. We hope you find this video useful and beneficial. Like, subscribe, and join our video, inshallah ta'ala. If you want to give us a shout, give us a ring, you can find our details on our website. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.